On January 11, 2014, MLP aired the episode Pinky Apple Pie to a lot of positive reception, but something that no one expected to see was a tall, ominous figure observing our characters from the distance. This figure would later be called the Slenderman. Slenderman was portrayed as a tall, expressionless pony that sported a tie and a fancy suit. He is tall, taller than any pony or creature that we saw at this point in the show, with some of his abilities being changing its height to blend in with its surroundings, erasing memories, mimicking voices, and teleportation. When he approaches you, you begin to feel sick and you begin to hallucinate, and even if you're able to run, the Slenderman will stalk you by hiding in the trees. It will follow you without you even noticing, and even if you get a glimpse on him, he will disappear in a blink of an eye, and when you least expect it. The disturbing thing is that no one knows why the Slenderman does this, but it can be both for food and territorial reasons. This is who the Slenderman is, and for many, this was both scary and fascinating. Slenderman was of course based on the Creepypasta Slenderman, which in and of itself was based on many creepy and supernatural works and stories. But how did the Slenderman got into the show in the first place? And well, it was thanks to Charmin Verhagen, one of the character designers in the show, who added the Slenderman as a fun Easter egg, something that no one believed back then, and surprisingly, for the first week of the episode being out, a lot of people called it a hoax made by the community, and even I didn't believe it. Keep in mind that at this point, MLP never did a pop culture reference this big, so a lot of fans just brushed it off as a simple rumor, and it wasn't until people actually analyzed the episode that fans realized that he actually was there. And fans absolutely loved it, and some even wanted the Slenderman to stay in the show as a permanent Easter egg, which never happened. But the Slenderman story didn't begin in the show, but rather in the MLP fandom, as even back in 2012 there were people who wanted a Slenderman entity in the show, even if it was just a reference, which eventually it was. But in the meantime, fans took this otherwise random concept and developed it, beginning with fan arts, where fans did a lot of different things with him, from scary to funny, and even making some redesigns of him, like making him an alicorn, and others giving him a cutie mark, and later even sparking some funny comics with Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy. But if we're talking about what the creepiest version of Slenderman was, well, it would be this one, where he looks very distorted, almost looking like he's made out of wood or bone, and with him having a creepy, unrecognizable face. And logically, this was the next step for fans to take the Slenderman in, and they accomplished this with fanfics. Now, when talking about Slenderman fanfics, there were a lot to choose from, and depending on which one you read, you get a different take on who he is. Some stories made him to be a misunderstood creature that seeks warmth and a sense of friendship. Others, a territorial creature that stalked its victims for food and sport, and some even trying to give him an origin story in-universe. Like him originally being an earth pony mare who the only thing that she wanted in life was to use magic, but never could. So in an act of desperation, she did the next best thing, use dark magic. Something that eventually corrupted her and transformed her into the Slenderman. And while all of these are fun and entertaining stories to read, one that stands out from the rest is one that is simply called Slender. This one served as an introduction to Slenderman in Equestria in a smart and terrifying way, with him being something of an old mare's tale. But what made this fanfic so special was that this fanfic made the foundation of who Slenderman would be, as this fanfic introduced his famous powers, abilities, and added some new aspects about his nature, like establishing him as a highly territorial creature that lives in the everfree forest and hunts fillies to eat, while a grown pony just hunts for sport. All these aspects, plus the simple but effective story about the disappearance of 4 fillies in Apple Bloom, and with Applejack venturing to the everfree forest to find some answers and her sister, gave the Slenderman the development and foundation that it desperately needed to finally become more than just a reference. But it isn't what made him so popular, no, because that was the game. Derp Till Dawn is a game that could simply be described as Slender, but with ponies. But there's more to the game than just a simple reskin, and underneath this simple over-top gameplay lies a cryptic and quite interesting story and ending, too actually. The first one being the bad ending. Now, the bad ending shares a lot of similarities to the original Slender the 8 pages, with our only objective being to collect the 8 pages spread around the map, with Slender getting more and more aggressive the more notes you collect. Pretty standard, this until you get to the end of the game, where instead of just dying, we instead descend onto a dungeon where we need to explore it to try and find a way out. Which we don't, and instead we find a dead end with a note, and after we pick it up, this happens. And the good ending is somewhat similar, but there are some notable differences. The first one is that you need to die in your first playthrough before you can attempt the ending. But from there, it's pretty straightforward, as you just need to go to a specific location in the map to yet again enter the dungeon. But what's different this time is where we end up, as instead of being the dead end that we saw in the bad ending, instead we see a weird tunnel with flashing lights, and at the end a big glass window with a note that reads, "Return to sender," and that's exactly what we do. After that, the glass begins to break and the Slenderman appears, and from here the only thing that we can do is run. And at the end, everything collapses, trapping the Slenderman in, and with this, giving us the good ending. This ending confused a lot of people back in the day, and even some regarded it as a nonsensical and random ending, but I don't think that that was the case. Because as confusing and cryptic as this ending is, the reality is that the story of this game is about returning the Slenderman to his original dimension. The planet that we see at the end could be the Slenderman's original world, and with us destroying the only connection that he has to our world. And the reason why we needed to die before attempting the ending was to act as a sort of sacrifice. And we actually see this if we return to the place that we died in the previous playthrough. This game truly was the beginning of the Slenderman's popularity, and it showed, not only in the community, as this game inspired a lot of early MLP content creators to not only play it, but also inspired theories, fan arts, and even new fanfics. And the popularity of the game exploded even outside of the MLP community, with even YouTubers like Yummy Mash playing the game. And at this point it seemed that Slenderman was here to stay, which would not be the case. The decline of Slenderman was something almost instantaneous, with his decline coming after his appearance in the show. But why? And well, the reality was that it wasn't Slenderman's fault or even the MLP community, but rather the Creepypasta community. Something that you need to understand is that at this point a lot of Creepypastas and Slenderman himself were on the decline. Mix this with the fact that a lot of people were leaving the MLP community, and it's not surprising why the Slenderman fell off so quickly. And let's not forget that at this point we already had more interesting or even scarier stories in the MLP fandom. I mean, let's not forget that in the time that the Slenderman was popular, we had stories like Silent Ponyville 1, 2 and 3, Something Sweet to Bite, Cupcakes, Rainbow Factory, The Trees Are Screaming, Shirley's Garden, and so many more. And by 2015, the Slenderman would become a forgotten relic of the golden age of G4. So, with the interest of Slenderman dead and new stories and creatures coming out, does this mean that there's no chance for another Slenderman in the MLP fandom? And well, no. I think there will always be a place for another creature like Slenderman in the MLP fandom, and today I wanna bring two creatures that filled that role after the Slenderman's popularity ended. The first one is... The Mimic was a creature that appeared in the Silent Ponyville spin-off Lost Memories. The Mimic is a creature that stalks its victims by blending into its surroundings and can turn into anything or anyone. The Mimic was a relentless creature that will never stop hunting its target, and what I feel that makes this creature so creepy is the fact that despite being capable of turning itself into anything, it can't maintain a form for long, which might sound like a weakness, but that's far from the truth, as it will use this to torture you even further. And it will do this until you pay for your crimes and sins, or you die. And finally we have September. For those who don't know, September is the name of an entity that appeared throughout the MLP comics, and would usually follow our protagonist, manipulate their decisions, or sometimes change their futures. And while not being inspired by the Slenderman, I can't deny that these two have a lot in common. From both of them being entities that follow their targets by blending into the background, to both being immortal, and finally, both being interdimensional beings. The only difference is that September was more than just a reference, he was a part of the overall story of the MLP comics, and to this day we don't know what his story was, or even why he observed our characters. Aside of that, what makes September so scary, at least for me, is the idea of a character just watching you. We don't know who or what he is, what his intentions are, and the only thing that we do know about him is that he's always watching you. And that to me is way scarier than any shape-shifting or supernatural creature. But whatever the case might be, it's crazy to think that this seemingly simple Easter egg not only influenced a whole community, but also inspired us to develop and to create new creatures that would scare us and fascinate us for the years to come. And it all started with one question: what if Slender was a pony?